Good afternoon. It's time to start thinking about dinner. And it's still a little chilly outside, so we're going to do a nice warm kind of dinner tonight. We're going to make pot roast. So we'll show you our favorite recipe for pot roast. For this recipe, we're going to be using our Pampered Chef Rock Crock slow cooker. And the reason I like this slow cooker is because this heavy pot that comes with it, you can use it on the stove, in the oven, or on the slow cooker. So you pretty much get like a Dutch oven that you can use on a slow cooker base. It also has two sizes of pot. This is like a small casserole type size, and this is more of a large Dutch oven style pot. So we've got it on the stove to begin with because we're going to brown our good Nebraska beef there. I'm going to use chuck roast because it's got more flavor in it, in my opinion. So we've got 3 tablespoons of olive oil in this pot. So we're going to turn the fire on. We're going to season that with salt and pepper to our taste. And then we're going to get this fired up and brown that on all sides. Now, if you didn't have most of the day to cook this recipe, you could do it in your Instapot or pressure cooker. Just make sure you follow the same steps. You just don't need to simmer it as long. So we've got this in the pot. We heard our sizzle throwing it in there. And you want to season it very generously because it's a large cut of meat. So you can put a little more on there than you would put just for a steak or something like that. So we'll brown this on all sides, and then we will come back and show you what's next. Now the reason you want to brown this meat is to give your pot roast more flavor. So we're going to get a good crust on the outside of this meat. It's called the Maillard effect, or Maillard effect, where it caramelizes the outside of the meat, giving that a lot more flavor. You get the little brown bits down in the pot. That when we add the liquid, it's going to deglaze the pot, and all that goodness is going to come up into your pot roast. So you want to do this anytime you're making stew or soup or pot roast. Make sure you brown your meat, and you can even brown your vegetables as well. Alright, I apologize for the fan noise, but this thing's going to smoke because you're cooking this stuff pretty good. So you make sure you have your fan on. So at this point, our meat is sufficiently browned. We're going to add about 3 tablespoons of chopped garlic in there just to kind of heat up. We don't want to leave it alone too long. Stir it around a little bit. And that's about it. You just want to sweat it just a hair. So now we're going to add about a cup of red wine to deglaze the pot a little bit. You can see how everything's kind of simmered down. And now we can turn the fan off. So that cold liquid is going to bring everything off the bottom of that pot. It's all going to come up. All those scrumptious little brown bits that are down there. Just kind of scrape it and help them come up. And they'll come right up. So if you don't brown your meat, it's going to taste like boiled meat. And that's not good eats at all. Alright. So we've got that coming up to a boil. So now we're going to add all our veggies. We've got a cup of chopped celery, a cup of carrots, and a cup of onion. And we just did a rough chop. You don't need to make them a little small dice. Make it pretty rough. So we're going to put the lid on. We're going to let that steam just for a little bit. Alright, we've had it steaming a little bit. We're just kind of bringing the whole pot and the veggies in it kind of up to temperature. So now at this point is when you want to add your herbs or your aromatics. It calls for 2 to 3 sprigs of rosemary and 2 to 3 sprigs of fresh thyme, both of them fresh. However, we dry all of our herbs here after they've grown in the summer, so we don't waste any. So you need to figure about a half a teaspoon for each sprig of whatever you're using. So if there's 2 to 3 sprigs, I lean towards the 3. So we need 3 half teaspoons, which is 1.5 teaspoons, or 1/2 of a tablespoon of each of those, rosemary and thyme dry. So half a tablespoon or 1.5 teaspoons, we're going to sprinkle that in the pot. And this is going to cook all day, so that rosemary, that woodiness of that dry rosemary will kind of go away. So at this point, we're going to add beef broth to the mix. You could use your homemade bone broth or whatever. I got some of these store-bought broths that I need to use up that we had in the pantry already. So you want to bring it up to where it's just covering your vegetables. It's going to simmer out a little bit, so I put just a little bit more. This is a 32-ounce carton of stock. So now we put the lid on this. I want to bring this up to a good rolling boil before I put it on our slow cooker stand. That way this doesn't take such a long time to bring this up and start simmering. It's already going to be simmering when I put it on there. Now if you don't have a slow cooker, you could do this, like I said, either in your Instapot, or you could put the lid on this thing and put it in your oven at about 250 degrees, and it'll just let it cook all day long in your oven. It'll do the same thing. For about a 3-pound roast, you want to do a minimum of 3 hours, but I would go more to like 5 or 6. Alright, our pot has came to a boil, so now we're going to transfer it over to our slow cooker heating plate. We've already had it on for a while. I've got it on high. And then once I see that it's boiling pretty good, I'll click that down to low. Now when it's all done, you've also got a warm setting down here that you can put it on warm till dinner time, and it won't keep cooking so hard to where everything's just going to fall apart. So let me get that transferred over. Alright, we've got it moved over. Now the good part about the heating plate or any slow cooker is they don't heat all from the bottom. A lot of the heat comes from the sides as well, so you don't burn that meat that's sitting on the bottom. Now the other good thing about our Pampered Chef cooker is it has this sealing ring, so if you're going to take your dish to a potluck or whatever, or somebody else's house, you're going to transport it, this sealing ring goes between the glass lid and the rock crock to seal it up, and also keeps your lid from banging around if you're going around any bumps or anything like that. And it also comes with an insulated carrier that this whole unit sets in, the bottom and everything sets in the carrier. Then it's got Velcro straps and clips to hold the top down, and it's got little notches that hold these handles so nothing's going around and moving around, and it holds it nice little tight package to where it's not leaking all over your car, and you can carry it wherever you're going to go. So now it's walk away time. It's boiling still pretty good. I'm going to watch it for a few more minutes, and if it continues to boil that well, we'll turn it down to low, and then we just come back right before dinner. Alright, it was boiling fine, so we went ahead and turned it down to low. Now we've gotten a lot of requests for actual written recipes, and the reason I never did that is I pretty much just figured somebody could follow along and just write it down as we go. So we've got so much request for that. So what I'll do at the end of this video, if you watch it to the end, I'm going to post a picture of the actual recipe minus the directions, because you've seen the directions here. And then you can just pause it and screenshot it on your phone, print it out, whatever you want to do. So we're going to try to start doing that. If I forget or something, go ahead and give me a reminder in the comments, but that's what we're going to try to do to help you guys out. Alright folks, our pot roast is done, and we had to leave it on high to get the right simmer going in the pot there. So now I've got some skin on red potatoes to boil, to soften up. Some people will put their potatoes in with the pot roast. I don't do that, however. I want the potatoes to taste like potatoes, because If you cook them in there, they're going to taste like everything else in that pot. So we're going to make some really good mashed potatoes with these, and then we'll serve it all up and we'll show you what it looks like. For our mashed potatoes, I only cooked enough pretty much for me and Kelly. So I'm going to use about a half a cube of butter in there once I drain those, once after they're soft. Salt and pepper and some sour cream. And I'll add just enough sour cream to get it to be fluffy, where it's not like lumpy or dry. And then you want to taste your salt in these. You keep tasting it and keep adding salt, keep tasting it, keep adding salt, because potatoes take a lot of salt. And once you get there, you want these potatoes to be able to, if you want to just eat them by themselves, they're fine. They don't need anything else on them. And that's when you want to stop adding salt. But you'd be surprised how much salt potatoes take. In fact, if you're ever making something like a soup or something and it gets too salty, if you add some sliced potatoes to the mix and cook those potatoes in it, they will soak up a lot of the salt, and you can either leave the potatoes in or just take them out and discard them if all you wanted to do is bring the salt level down, and it works really well. Alright, while our potatoes are boiling, we remove some of our cooking liquid out of the pot roast, and we place it in a saucepan, and we are going to thicken that to make some gravy. Alright, our cooking liquid is boiling. I'm going to turn it down to medium. We've added a good knob of butter in there. And as soon as that butter melts, we have a slurry of about 2 tablespoons of flour and just enough water to moisten it. The reason I like to use flour, a lot of people use cornstarch, but I don't like the gloopy, gloppy texture that the cornstarch gives. I prefer flour as a thickener in almost everything I cook, even pies and things like that. I always use the flour. Alright, our sauce is done. You don't want it as thick as gravy. You want it just like a sauce where it'll coat the back of a spoon. We've added just a little bit of pepper to that. It didn't need any salt. Our potatoes are perfectly fluffy and seasoned well. And everything is done, ready for dinner. Alright friends, isn't that a beautiful sight right there? That's some tasty goodness. Been cooked all day long. And I cheated, I already had some, so I know it's really good. So, hope you guys make this recipe. It's really simple. It's one of those put it in the pot and forget it kind of meals. So, love you guys. Stay safe, stay healthy. See you next time.